Namaskar everybody and welcome to the satsang. So let us get started with the good evening Ranjini, good evening. So let's get started with our satsang. Let us do the prarthana. By the Guru's grace and the will of Sri Krishna, we have all assembled for this online Geeta satsang. May we have their guidance to be able to learn and adopt the things which will help us to grow spiritually. Let us chant together. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnaya Vasudevaya Haraye Paramatmane Pranata Klesha Nashaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namostu Te Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Ullara Vindaya Tapatra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Ramanujadaya Patram Jnana Vairagyabhushanam Srimadvenkatanathaaryam Vande Vedanta Deshikam Yo Nityamachyuta Padambuja Yugma Rukma Vyamohatastaditarani Trinaya Mene Asmat Gurur Bhagavatosya Dayaika Sindho Ramanujasya Charanau Sharanam Prapadye. So with prayers at the lotus feet of the Acharyas, let us take up our shloka for today. So this is the second chapter, the 32nd shloka. So in this again, Krishna is continuing to speak to Arjuna. We have seen in the previous shloka how he started explaining to Arjuna that it is his duty as a Kshatriya to fight. And he continues in that same line. So Krishna says, Yadrichaya chopapannam Swargadwaramapavritam Sukhina Kshatriya Partha Labante Yuddhamidrisham. Which means, O Partha, happy are the warriors to whom such opportunities to defend righteousness come unsought, opening for them the stairway to the celestial abodes. So what Krishna is trying to say here is that, just 1 minute please. So Krishna is now trying to talk to Arjuna and explain to him that those Kshatriyas who get the opportunity to fight in a Dharmayuddha, right? Those Kshatriyas are actually very fortunate because for them, the yuddha which is come, although they may not have sought that yuddha, they may not have searched and found or waited for that opportunity. But if it comes to them, then if they fight in that dharma yuddha and if they lose their life in that death becomes like an opening to reach the higher abodes. So it becomes like a stairway, a staircase to reach the higher abodes. So that is what he's trying to say here. So let us try to understand a little more about this concept. So we already saw in the last satsang that according to the varna of a person, according to the class to which they belong, that person will have particular duties to perform. So when somebody performs their duties as per their varna, then just the fact that they are doing that and they are doing it as an offering to the Lord, that is going to be enough to take them to moksha. So here, this fight which is going to take place between the Kauravas and the Pandavas, it is a Dharma Yuddha. So in this Dharma Yuddha, whatever happens, the outcome, irrespective of that, if Arjuna fights as it is his duty, then he is going to have the chance to attain moksha. Now, what Krishna is telling Arjuna is, the opportunity has come to you unsought. That means you didn't seek it. It has come by itself. That means he's trying to say that Arjuna has lot of punya. And because he has a lot of punya, that punya has given him this opportunity to fight in a dharma yuddha. Because all Kshatriyas, because of their Kshatriya category, they will have the opportunity to fight. But whether that fight will be a fight for righteousness, whether it is going to be a Dharma Yuddha, that is not going to be in their control. And anything which happens in an ordinary fight does not give any benefit to the person who is fighting. He will only get punya because he has done his duty as a Kshatriya. But if there is somebody who is fighting in a dharma yuddha, then the fact that it is a dharma yuddha and he is doing the right thing by fighting in that dharma yuddha, that will be the pathway for moksha. So here again, we need to pay attention to the difference between what is swarga and what is moksha. So here he says in the shloka, it does say that the person it is like a dwara to swarga. But what is the idea of swarga here? Normally, when we say swarga, the context is that it is the loka where Indra is the king. So it is heaven in English, as we want to refer to it. It is what we call as heaven. So in that heaven, there is a time span for which a person will spend, that particular Atma will spend time in that swarga, because that will depend on the amount of punya which they have accumulated. But staying in Swarga is not permanent. The minute that store of punya gets exhausted, the person is bound to be thrown out from Swarga and come back either to Bhuloka or whatever as per his karmas. Just 1 minute, please. I'll just pause for a while. So, like I was saying, this whole concept of what is Swarga, what is Moksha. Moksha is to reach Vaikuntha, where there is no further coming back, right? So if somebody is going to get to moksha, then there is no question of them taking birth again. They will have exhausted all their store of papa, punya, everything, and there is no coming back. Swarga means a person goes to that heaven because of his stock of punya, and after that stock is exhausted, he is no longer allowed to stay there. So Swarga is not equal to moksha. But here in this shloka, when Lord is using that word swarga, it is used because of the context and the message which he is conveying. The acharyas explain that it is actually a staircase. Fighting in the dharma yuddha is a staircase to moksha. So he's not talking about that indraloka swarga, but rather about moksha. Now, if we take a look at dharma yuddha, this whole idea of what is dharma yuddha. Dharma yuddha means fighting or being in a battle, fighting for a cause which is supported by dharma. So if we look at how the Lord's avatars, we know there are many, many avatars of the Lord. Out of all those avatars, the 10 are predominant. There are Dashavatara, right? So those are the predominant ones. Now, even in these, if we see certain avatars like the Matsya Avatara, Kurma Avatara, Varaha Avatara, right? Narasimha Avatara, all these which took place in the Krita Yuga, or what we call as the Satya Yuga. During those times, there the fight was against one individual who was the enemy. Or in case of Vamana Avatara, there was no fight also, right? It was just subduing the enemy. So in that case, the fight and its rules and the concepts were different. Now, if you look at the other yugas, like in Treta Yuga, there was Rama Avatara. In Dwapara Yuga, there was Krishna Avatara. So during this Treta Yuga and Dwapara Yuga, the fight of the avatars was not against one individual, but it was against an entire army of people, right? Of course, in Krishna Avatara, we can say technically Krishna did not fight, but whatever, the Dharma Yuddha which took place, the fight between right and wrong, between good and evil. So that fight did take place between armies. So what we can understand from this is that in the different yugas, the dharma was also different, and therefore the style of the yuddha was also different. Like for example, even, okay, now we said that during the Treta Yuga and in Dwapar Yuga, between Rama and Krishna, they had fight between enemies, between armies. So, but even within that, if you look at it, Ramayana, Lord Rama's reign, all that happened during the Treta Yuga. And Krishna Avatara was in the Dwapar Yuga. Now, if you look at, even if you compare the Yuddha of Ramayana with the Yuddha in Mahabharata, we can see that there are drastic differences. In the Rama Ravana Yuddha, all the rules of the Yuddha were followed. Okay, the Rakshasas used whatever their Mayavi Shakti, but that was what was given to them. They are the possessors of that Mayavi Shakti, so they made use of it. But even then, rules like that no fighting after sundown, or not using wrong methods to kill somebody, all those rules of the Yuddha were followed. But if we see in the Mahabharata Yuddha, there is a big difference, because we know incidents like how Abhimanyu was killed in a wrongful manner and so on. So, like that whole concept of what is dharma, how much somebody is going to stick to that, does keep changing between the yugas. So, as per the Kala, the rules of dharma will keep changing. Then, how is it then whether one determines that this is Dharma Yuddha or not Dharma Yuddha? So again, if you remember what I mentioned in the last satsang, as Swami Ramanujacharya has explained in his Geeta Bhashya, he says that it is ultimately the outcome which matters. So if the outcome is a superior one, if the fruit of a particular yuddha is superior, then that makes the entire method, the process of the fight itself, a pure one. So, like here, the example which is given to explain this is like, suppose let us say there is a person who is going to perform the action of jumping from a high place. Okay. Now, the action is that somebody is going to jump from a high place. Now, if this person is doing this, let us say because he wants to establish some new record for the highest jump and he wants to get into the Guinness Book of World Records or whatever. Now, we will say that his intention or the outcome, the purpose of that is a very superior one. Now, suppose somebody is jumping from a height in order to give up their life, to commit suicide, then will we say that that is a superior action? No, we will say it is an inferior action. It's a wrong action, isn't it? So sometimes the act is one same thing, but what is the purpose of it? What is going to be the outcome of that? What is the fruit of that action? That is what will decide whether that particular act is considered a superior one or an inferior one. So similarly, in a yuddha, if that yuddha is for the sake of supporting dharma, if that yuddha is for the sake of making sure that the rules of dharma are followed, then that is what makes it a dharma yuddha. And anything which is sanctioned by the shastras, that is a dharma yuddha. If there is some fight which is going on, but it is against what is told in the shastras, it is against whatever the Vedas and Upanishads lay down, then that can be just an ordinary fight. Here we need to remember that it is not a question of emotion, it is not a question of feelings, but it is a question of how much that particular concept is in keeping with the idea of dharma as laid down in the shastras. So, what makes a fight an ordinary fight or makes it a dharma yuddha is the outcome that is going to come from that fight, right? So, now what the shastras say, that for a kshatriya, fighting is the right thing to do. It is his duty as a kshatriya to fight. Now, if a kshatriya fights in any fight, he will get swarga if he dies in that fight. Or if he wins the war or whatever, he will enjoy the riches on this earth. But if he is fighting for a cause which is something which is supported by the Dharma Shastras, then it becomes a Dharma Yuddha, and then he goes to moksha itself because of having lost his life in that fight. So, if a Kshatriya says that he is not going to fight, right? Let us say, let us even forget about the higher ideal of getting moksha. But just the fact that Arjuna is refusing to fight, he is not even doing what is his basic duty as a Kshatriya. Now, as a Kshatriya, he should be fighting, whether it is Dharmayuddha or some other yuddha, just an ordinary yuddha. Still, as a Kshatriya, he has to fight. If he refuses to fight, right, even it may be an ordinary fight, but if Arjuna refuses to fight, then what he is doing is against the Shastras. So actually, he will gain papa for that action of his, right? So it is his duty to fight. So what Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna here is that whether you look at it as just an ordinary fight, and because it is Kshatriya, you are Kshatriya, it is your duty to fight. You can look like that. Or you can even look at the higher point of view, at the more superior outcome point of view, and say that this is Dharma Yuddha. By fighting in the Dharma Yuddha, I will get moksha. So either way, O Arjuna, you are bound to fight. You have to fight. So in this sense, we can say that Arjuna's intention is to run away from the fight. So he wants to be in a state of inaction. He does not want to take any action. But what is Lord Krishna trying to tell? That he should not do this, that it is his duty to fight. So Krishna is trying to convince him that you have to take action. So all these people who say that Bhagavad Gita is just a philosophy, Bhagavad Gita is just a talk, it is just a very theoretical kind of thing, then they are actually not understanding the real spirit of the Bhagavad Gita. So what they must understand is that through these shlokas, we can make out in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna is giving a call to action. And he is in fact telling Arjuna and guiding him that you must not stay without acting. So the Bhagavad Gita is a call to action. It is not a escapist kind of a philosophy, or it is not trying to tell somebody that they should not act. Quite the opposite. The Bhagavad Gita is something which is telling us that in every stage of your life, in every particular situation, you should fight. Sanati is on the way. Okay, good. Right. So this is what we must understand from Krishna's message. Now, okay, we have discussed about Dharma Yuddha, we have discussed about all these things. From our point of view, what is the message for us? What is it that we can learn to, guide our actions in our life? So many times we are faced with situations where we don't know to judge whether something that we are doing is correct. Should we act in a particular way, or should we not do that particular action? So from whatever has been discussed so far, we can get a few rules, right? We can get a few guidelines for how we can determine whether our particular action is correct or not. So the first thing is, we can check whatever I'm going to do, is it something which is allowed? I may not be very much aware of Dharma Shastra, that is a next level, but at least in the starting levels, basic, whatever is the rules of my land, whatever is my country's laws, if is my action going to be something which is allowed by those rules, right? That we can look at. Then we need to decide that doing that particular action, if I do this, is it going to be against whatever is told in the law? Now, these 2 points, A and B, which I have mentioned here, they may look very similar, but actually they have a deeper meaning. So if something is allowed, like the law says you can do this, then if I do that, it's fine. Now, there may be some things which the law is not talking about. And then there are other things which the law says you should not do. Now, if I don't do what is told to do, or if I do what is told not to do, in either case, my action is not going to be correct. So if the rules say do this and I do it, then I'm on the right side. If the rules say do this and I don't do that, then I'm on the wrong side. Similarly, the other way around. If the rules say don't do this and I listen to that and I don't do that, then I'm on the right side. If the rules say don't do this, but I do it, then I'm on the wrong side. So, like this, we need to check, is something allowed by the rules or law? By doing a particular action, am I going to go against the rules or law? Right? So, these are the basic two steps. And further on, what I need to do is I need to check, by doing this particular action, by acting in this particular manner, what is the outcome? What will be the fruit of this action? Is it a superior one or is it an inferior one? So, if it is superior, definitely I have to do it. And now, what do we mean by superior? Superior means it should have a good outcome. It should have the ability to cause maximum good for the maximum amount of people, maximum good for majority of people. Then that is considered as superior. And what is inferior? Sometimes there may be some outcome which is going to be good for me, but it is going to be bad for a lot of other people or for somebody else. Then that does not qualify as a superior action. So, like that, what is the outcome? Is it going to be a good outcome for maximum number of people? Then I should do it. Is it something which is going to not be so good for more number of people? I should not do it. Right? And fourthly, we can check, have our elders or ancestors, people in our family, people in our society, people in our country, have they previously taken such an action? Has somebody else done this? And has it been approved by the rest of society or by the rest of the family? If yes, then I can go ahead and do that action. If no, then I should abstain. I should not do that particular action. So, like this, we can use certain guidelines, and based on what comes up as the answer to these questions, we can decide whether a particular mode of action I should take it up or I should not take it up. So, like this, we can use, like whatever is told in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna is telling to Arjuna. But we must put ourselves in the position of Arjuna and feel that many times we are confused about what to do or what not to do. Many times we know what is right and we know what is wrong, and yet we don't have the strength to do the right thing, or we don't have the ability to withstand, and we end up doing the wrong thing. So, in all such situations, we must remember the message which is told in the Bhagavad Gita by Lord Krishna and think that it is being told for us only. And by thinking in that way, we will be able to gradually tune our mind to doing things only which are allowed by the rules of Dharma, only which are allowed by the Dharma Shastras. And gradually we will move away. Of course, many times there is going to be a conflict between what is a superior outcome and what is my personal comfort zone, right? Often it will happen that if there is something which is going to be good for many people, I may have to undergo some discomfort for that. But we need to be aware that my personal comfort, if I'm only thinking about that, then it means that I'm still stuck at a Rajasic Tamasic level. And if I'm able to think about the benefit of other people also around me, then it means that I am moving to the sattvic state of mind. So it will be a conflict and it will be a very difficult path. But we must try and keep reminding ourselves that what Krishna has told in the Gita, how can I adopt that into my life? How can I put those principles into action in my life? So, from this shloka, we can understand how Krishna is trying to motivate Arjuna. Now, many times we may have the idea that, oh, Arjuna was so this thing, he was like not wanting to fight. And also, there are some people no, who say that Arjuna was a coward, or Arjuna didn't have so much willpower, or he didn't have so much moral strength, and like that. But we must understand, Arjuna was a great, indeed, such a great personality. We have seen in the first chapter when we talked about all those names which were used for Arjuna, right? So he was called Gudakesha, then he is Sabyasachi. So he has so many quality, and Krishna calls him Parantapa. So he has such a high caliber. He's such a great personality. And yet, because the mind was not tuned in the right direction, because the mind got swayed by emotions, it was difficult for him to understand what was to be done. In fact, sometimes the acharyas also say that all this conflict which is shown in the mind of Arjuna, it is not as if Arjuna was actually such a weak person, but why it is being shown so that we learn from it. Many times we see these stories which people tell about how Indra committed some mistake or Brahma did some apachara, like that. Now, all these also we may be tempted to say that, oh, what is this? These deities only, these devatas only are behaving like this. But that is not the viewpoint that we should take. Rather, we should see that this is some event which has happened. What can I learn to be cautious out of that? Because to be able to brand somebody as right and wrong and oh, they are making such mistakes and things like that, we should be better than those people, which definitely we are not, isn't it? So, after having so much punya of how many, God knows, thousands and thousands of janma, only somebody comes to that padavi, to that position of an Indra or a Brahma. So definitely they are much superior than us. But why these events are shown, why these stories are told to us, why these things have been highlighted to show us that how much ever high may be your capacity, at some time, if you are not alert, there is a tendency to lose track. And so, if for them only it can happen, then what is our condition? We are definitely far more fallen than those people. We are just having a human birth. We are not even able to control our indriyas, not even able to control our own mind. So we cannot comment about the actions of those deities. But we must use these incidents, we must use these concepts to try and guide our life on the right direction. So that is what is the message which is told to us in every stage. So in today's shloka, we have seen about how Krishna is trying to convince Arjuna that you have not come looking for this fight, isn't it? Because the Pandavas did all possible methods they used to try and avoid a fight. They were even willing to say that you just give us 5 villages and we will rule those. Now, why were they so adamant about that? Because as a Kshatriya, if they don't rule, then that is against the dharma for them. So, if they are going to abide by dharma, then they should be ruling somewhere. Because the terms and conditions of those of that gambling match and all that, they went into the vanavasa, they did all those things to follow the rules of dharma. Now, but when they have finished all that and come, then Dharma says they should be Kshatriyas, as Kshatriyas they should be ruling, then they should be ruling. So if they say, no, we forget it, we will go take sannyasa, then it is against the Dharma of a Kshatriya to say, I will take sannyas and I will go and live in the forest, I will do tapas. So that is the reason why they tried everything possible to avoid the yuddha. But despite that, because the Kauravas were adamant, this yuddha is happening. So that is why Krishna is saying that this opportunity to defend dharma, this opportunity to fight in a dharma yuddha on the side of dharma has come unsought to you. You didn't go fighting behind it. You didn't go hankering behind it. It has come by itself to you. So, O Partha, O Arjuna, use this as an opportunity to get to the higher abodes. And later also in some shlokas, it will be told that if you win this war, what is going to happen? If you lose in the war, what is going to happen? But either way, it is a win-win situation for Arjuna. And that is what Lord Krishna is trying to convince him here. So in the further 2 shlokas also, we will be seeing how Krishna is going to continue in this line of thought, that as a Kshatriya, how it is his duty to fight or to continue. So we'll take those shlokas up in the next satsang. For today, let us stop here. We will offer gratitude. Let us offer Kritagnyata at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna and Guru for inspiring us to start and join this satsang. And let us pray for their blessings and grace to always be on us. Thank you everybody for attending, and we will meet again in the next satsang next Thursday. If anybody, thank you so much. If anybody has any doubts, thank you, Tulsiram. Thank you, everybody. If anybody has any questions or any doubts, you can send them to me on WhatsApp. Thank you, Ranjini Oret. Thank you, Chudamani Mami left, I think. So, if anybody has any questions, we can take them up later. You can please send me on WhatsApp. We will take it up in the next satsang.